All right, welcome back. This is the Bleav in Rams podcast, and it is episode 154. I'm Jake Ellenbogen. Joining me, as always, is Cameron Lynch, your former Rams linebacker, and I love that. I love the little
yeah, blessings. Yeah, gratitude there.
So today we're going to be discussing pretty much everything that's going on around the LA Rams, and we're going to be touching on some interesting topics in regards to the NFLPA first ever report card of all 32 teams. That was very enlightening and interesting, to say the least. And I'm lucky because when we're talking about the NFLPA, I got a former player here like that can actually touch on this. So that'll be cool. I'm also going to grill Cam on his thoughts on if Jalen is going to get traded. And we're going to be talking about whether or not it's too early to draft the quarterback of the future, this year in the NFL draft. And in addition to that, you guys have mentioned it before, but reunions, right? We talk about John Johnson. He's going to get released by the Browns. I think you and I have brought this up before as a possibility.
Yeah.
Roger Saffold, obvious reunion is possible there.
Robert Woods.
You look at Robert Woods, exactly. Your guy, Michael Brockers, just the nonstop, like, Energizer bunny in that locker room, and then Odell. So we can talk about all of that. Before we do, we're going to head into our ad read, and then we'll get the show started. So BetOnline remains your number one source for all your sports betting this season. Everything from NFL and bowl season to esports. You always find the latest odds, team matchup info, player news, and game trends at BetOnline. BetOnline features live betting, free contests, and live scores for almost any sport or game imaginable. With the fastest and easiest way to bet all your favorite leagues and events, head on over to betonline.ag to join and receive your 50% welcome bonus with your first deposit. Make sure to use promo code Bleav to receive your rewards. BetOnline, where the game starts. So, Cam, burning question for you. I said I was going to grill you. I'm going to grill you, man. I'm going to so grill you right now. Jalen Ramsey is likely to be traded. Now, you and I might want to throw hands about this news coming out because Jalen is a dog. But do you think this deal does get done like everyone's talking about? And what do you feel the Rams are going to get in return?
Yeah, when it comes to Jalen Ramsey, the Rams have to get something and then more, right? Jalen Ramsey, he's a generational player. We know that. He's a leader in the locker room. And so when it comes to Jalen Ramsey, I think I sent you a lot of times whenever we podcast, usually the day after, Jake, there's some news where I'm sending you an Instagram message like, hey, Adam Schefter, like after Bobby Wagner, we talked about Bobby Wagner all last week. And then right after that, Jalen Ramsey's talking about he wants to leave next. And so, we talked about Leslie's conversation about remodeling. And I just think they're cleaning the house at this point, Jake. Like, they're just like, hey, guys, let's get everyone out of here and let's start anew. So it's pretty frustrating. It's pretty frustrating as a Rams fan, as a former player as well, just kind of getting rid of the things that they built already. And so we talked about some of the boomerang players, right? Your Robert Woods, your Michael Brockers, guys coming back to add to the leadership in the locker room. I think, regardless of what happens here, leadership is key. You mentioned an article about, just about what happened last year with Sean McVay, and he leaned on Bobby Wagner. He really needed that leadership to come through from the players. And so, whatever happens, in this remodeling, just make sure that there's leaders in the locker room, some proven leaders. And I do think your Roger Saffold, your Robert Woods, and your Michael Brockers, they are leaders. So with Jalen Ramsey, going back to your original question, you have to get some and then more, right? Whether that's some first round draft picks, we don't know, second round or third rounders, but I think that's extremely important. And then, we talk about the quarterback position with Matthew Stafford. We know my man is hurt now. Not last year he was hurt, but there's a question around that, his health. And so, Baker Mayfield, is he going to come back? What does that look like? But really making sure that the quarterback position, that there's depth there, because we learned that between the Rams or your favorite arch nemesis, the 49ers, quarterbacks are like gold. That's currency. So, we'll see what happens, Jake. But it's not making me happy whatever's going on with Jalen Ramsey.
No. It's not making me happy either. I'll say this, and I've said this a lot this week alone, just on different shows and whatnot. But, Jalen isn't just like every other corner. Like, I think we're at the point where, we're asking the question, the Kansas City Chiefs just won the Super Bowl with 2 rookies on their corner staff, a late round pick in L'Jarius Sneed, who they've developed. And they spent $12 million this past year on Eric Reed, Justin Reed, excuse me. And then, they have a rookie and a rookie safety. They moved on from Honey Badger. They paid Chris Jones. That's like your Aaron Donald contract of the defense, right? But you look and even your go-to position linebacker. They don't have a Bobby Wagner. They're rolling with Nick Bolton, who's going to get paid a lot of money, but not right now. He's not, right? They got him on a rookie deal. They have Leo Chenal. They have Willie Gay. These are all draft picks. So I feel like the league is trending in the direction of copying once again. I mean, they always do this. The Rams were copied to a degree. Teams, we had never seen that many trades in an offseason before until the Rams did it for Stafford. And then all of a sudden, Deshaun Watson here and Russell Wilson here. And we just don't, this isn't the NBA. We don't see trades like that. And now all of a sudden we are. So, the Rams won the Super Bowl, and I think teams are like, we'll give it a shot. The Rams did it, and they won a Super Bowl, so let's give it a shot, right? Yeah. We saw the 49ers make a trade that I didn't really expect them to make. I didn't expect them to go out and trade that many picks for McCaffrey. They don't pick until the 3rd round. They did not win a Super Bowl last year, but they do have McCaffrey long-term, so you have to think about that. Here's the thing, okay?
Shouts at the 49ers, no big deal.
Yeah, just like low-key, like just, almost, it's coming up on almost 30 years since the last time you won a Super Bowl. Anyway, 3 decades, man, that's impressive. So anyway, my point, Cam, is that when you copy the Super Bowl, defending Super Bowl champions, and this point, the Chiefs, like how you would copy the Chiefs is kind of how the Rams are setting up if they trade away Jalen Ramsey, right? Because last year they had Frank Clark. Frank Clark, kind of similar. I mean, not as good of a run defender, but kind of similar to Leonard Floyd, right? And so, I think really we're getting to the point where we're going to start to see teams not want to pay the cornerback top dollar. And we're going to start to see teams, dare I say it to a man who is a defensive-minded guy. Doesn't mean you don't know offense, but you played defense. Cam, I hate to say it, I think the league is trending into an offense wins championships. And furthermore, what I will say is right now, sports have never been more full of promoting the score, right?
Yeah.
You look at baseball, look at how quickly, we're getting rid of the shift. We're getting rid of this. We're making bigger bases. We just added a pitch clock. So now you have these sports that are trying to get everybody to come in. Well, what's the easiest way to get people to join in and watch your game? A lot of scoring, right? Because good defense is also called trash offense from the casual fan. Am I wrong there? I mean, the Rams-Patriots game in the Super Bowl, people thought that was the worst Super Bowl ever.
Brutal.
I thought that was a pretty good Super Bowl with some fantastic defensive minds, and Wade Phillips and I totally forgot his name, but Brian Flores. There we go. The point is that I'm making, Cam, is that I do believe that Patrick Mahomes and that Kansas City offense has pushed the league back from the Legion of Boom defense wins championships back into an offense wins championships mentality. And I don't know how long this is going to last, but I think this is the new trend. This is the new wave. And we see it goes in flux and all that. We get reminded, defense matters again, because then someone comes up with something innovative. And now you're like, oh, crap, I didn't know that you could do that for a defense. And now all of a sudden offenses can't do anything against it. Then an offense figures out a way to beat that. Now the offense is... So I think right now we're trending back into the offense wins championships mentality. I don't know if you agree with that, but I do feel like we should discuss it because that is what I feel. The Rams are kind of not... They're trendsetters, but they're also trend followers, but they're always at the top. You know what I mean? They're always trying to follow what's in or trying to innovate what's in. And I feel like this is in right now, whether I want to agree with it or not, Cam. And I don't think Jalen, it'd be a disservice to call him just a top corner. He does everything. But I mean, look, who's the highest paid corner right now in the NFL as far as total value on his contract? It's Denzel Ward of the Browns. The Browns are also paying a quarterback with 25 allegations in the offseason. They're paying him a fully guaranteed contract, and he did not look very good last year. I'm not going to take the Browns as a team to design my building around, right? So
Not at all.
that's where
Yeah.
I'm at.
Not at all. And, you mentioned something. You mentioned Chris Jones, right? You talk about, teams copying championship teams, the Chiefs paying Chris Jones like the Rams paid Aaron Donald. I think, you mentioned going away from the cornerback position. I think you build up the defensive line, right? At the end of the day, whenever you control the line of scrimmage, we always talk about this. When you control the line of scrimmage, that way you can control the game. And so when you have someone applying pressure to a quarterback or that offense wins championship type of team, you're causing havoc, and basically you're giving your rookie corners chances. A lot of times when it comes to defensive backs, whenever you have a good defensive line, corners love that. Number one, because the ball gets disrupted, right? You have a good offense. These guys are wheeling and dealing. You have a great quarterback that's making moves. Well, if you go back to the championship game with Patrick Mahomes with that ankle, I was a little worried about the Chiefs, right? Because I knew, okay, the Eagles have a great defensive line. They're going to really get after him. Patrick Mahomes, he's a magician. He figures the things out. But whenever you have a good defensive line that applies pressure, that takes the stress off your cornerbacks. And therefore, that means the ball is getting thrown a little bit higher. The ball is a little bit delayed because there's a hand in their face. The Rams, we didn't have that because Aaron Donald got hurt and the pass rush did suffer. But whenever your defensive line is great, that takes pressure off your defensive back. So when you bring in a Michael Brockers, when you bring in people on the defensive line that can cause pressure, that can really motivate his teammates, I think that takes pressure off the cornerback position. So going back to our original question with Jalen Ramsey, right? Does he get traded? Do the Rams make sure that they build up this defensive line? Does Leonard Floyd stay? Do they add another piece to that? What does that look like? So I'm very curious, but I do think, back to your original question, the league is going to go back to an offensive league. They want to score points. They want people to tune into the football game. And going back to that Rams and Patriots game, I was able to broadcast that game, my first broadcast ever. And Jake, it was brutal. It was brutal, my man. It was brutal. The scores were low. There wasn't too much excitement. But one thing I do remember, Julian Edelman went off in that game. James White and Julian Edelman went off in that game. And so that just goes to show, when you have a great offense, it makes the game a little bit more exciting. And, that's something that you remember. That's something that sticks out. So offensive-minded league. Does Jalen Ramsey leave? Bobby Wagner's not there anymore. Aaron Donald might be retiring. He might be jumping ship. So we'll see.
That's also kind of the weird thing here is, like, we've talked about it, Aaron Donald, this is what happens when you get that extra deal, right? But also, like, why would Aaron Donald stay? Like, if they're doing what it looks like they're doing, and that's why I don't buy that they're doing what it looks like they're doing. I think if they trade Jalen Ramsey, it's to reallocate those funds, to reallocate that cap and capital, so to speak, towards other positions like the Chiefs are doing. I mean, the Chiefs are, I just keep bringing them up because they're such a great example here. They just won a Super Bowl showing you we don't need Honey Badger and we don't need Tyreek Hill. I mean, they let Tyreek Hill won $30 million. They're like, peace out. We'll send you over to Miami. You want to play in Miami? Here you go. Now you're in Miami. We're going to win a Super Bowl. You enjoy your $30 million being one of the best wide receivers, playing with Tua Tagovailoa and, all sorts of quarterbacks. I think at the end of the year, he's playing with Skylar Thompson. Like, I mean, that's basically what the Chiefs did. And they were just like, all right, peace,
Yeah.
And I just feel like, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying they're a dynasty, but they have qualities to become a dynasty. And when you have Patrick Mahomes, like, yeah, they're paying him $50 million this upcoming season. That is his cap hit, but he's worth every penny because of what he can do and what he can do without an offensive line, as we've seen, going back to the Bucs Super Bowl, that was, he got destroyed in that game and they got destroyed, but he never gave up. He never gave into that game. He kept them alive in a sense, like, on offense, you obviously can't do anything when you have like 4 out of 5 offensive linemen injured. But what he was able to do, the performance he was able to have, clearly not 100% either. I mean, that just tells you all you need to know about the guy. So also, the offensive line, Cam, we talk about it every episode. The Chiefs drafted 3 offensive linemen. You know, they drafted Creed Humphrey, who is a all-pro, Pro Bowl, I think all-pro center. You know, they drafted Trey Smith late in the draft, not a guy that people were thinking of. He turned into a stud. I was wrong about him. I was right about Creed Humphrey. I was wrong about Trey Smith. They also drafted Lucas Niang. They signed a big marquee free agent. He's older, but he adds that veteran leadership, veteran presence, Patriot way, Joe Thuney, right? And then they went out and they traded for Orlando Brown as like the final piece to the puzzle. Now, don't get me wrong. They also played Andrew Wiley last year or this past year, and he played very well, and he's probably going to get paid. But when you look at it, like, and again, Orlando Brown is up for free agency. They'll probably tag him. And they're not in the best cap shape, but when you have Patrick Mahomes as young as he is, and you've already proven that, you know, you don't need a bunch of stars everywhere to win. Like, you can have all your cornerbacks, all your linebackers, half of your offensive line on rookie deals. Look at their highest paid wide receiver, Cam, this upcoming season. It's Marquez Valdes-Scantling, and it's an awful contract. It's $11 million. That's it. Like, Juju signed a 1-year deal. He's going to go get paid. He's out the door, right? And they'll just draft some other guys. You know, they drafted Sky Moore, caught a touchdown in the Super Bowl. They went out and they got another team's trash is another team's treasure. We've talked about that term before, remember? And Kadarius Toney. Giants were done with him. They were done with how injured he was and everything. The Chiefs were like, all right, we'll bring him on in.
He's amazing. Yeah. That man's amazing. You know? He's so, lights out.
I mean, you know, and they don't win the Super Bowl without him. I mean, let's also talk about that, the punt return. So I don't want to, you know, this is not Bleav in Chiefs, but it just goes to show you that
we're taking notes.
You know,
Jake, we're taking notes here.
Yeah.
Come on now. Exactly. That's very important. That's really important. And Jake, one thing, you know, I want to point out, you know, it kind of goes back to our quarterback conversation, right? Where, you know, you have a great quarterback in Patrick Mahomes. Matthew Stafford's a great quarterback. With Matthew Stafford's health, do the Rams go out and get a quarterback for the future? I think that's something
nice
we really, nice segue, right? You can't give Chiefs too much love, but you know, I think that's something we really have to think about, because when it comes to the Rams, having a quarterback, you think about your Brock Purdy, going back to the 49ers. I know we talk about the Chiefs a lot, but if we give the 49ers some strife, but Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant, quote unquote, but he becomes the face of the NFL at some point, Jake, right? Like during the playoffs, he becomes the face of the NFL. He's crushing it, you know, every game. And the guys are like, hey, we wouldn't be here if it weren't for Brock Purdy, blah, blah, blah. So I think that's extremely important to pay attention to. And even if it's not a first rounder or a second rounder, hey, get a guy that's undrafted, or maybe get a guy that, you know, the last pick of the draft, but he can contribute to the team. But what the Rams have had, didn't work, Jake. And so I think we really have to pay attention to that. You just went through the offensive line piece. We need an offensive line. That's without a doubt. We've got a great backfield, but taking the quarterback position really serious, I would love to see a quarterback get drafted maybe in the late rounds for the Rams. I think that would be a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, I think right now they're, unless they pick one in the first round, they're probably looking at a bridge spot starter, which is probably what Baker Mayfield would be to them. Honestly, I don't see them looking at Baker Mayfield like he's the future, and I think that's the issue. Is a lot of Rams fans, they get caught up in the, you know, well, look at what he did for us, and it's like, you know, facts over feelings, man. Facts over feelings. I love Baker. I love what he did for the Rams. I'll always hold him, you know, a special place in my heart in this awful season, 5-12. I'll always remember that drive against the Raiders. I'll always remember that Broncos game. No matter if the team is 15-2 next year, I'm still going to remember what Baker did in this lost season. I'm not going to forget
Baker
it because
Bros.
He made them watchable again, right?
Yeah.
But here's the thing. Is that Baker has had injury concerns. Baker only played a handful of games at the end of the season. Now, he didn't get to play with Cooper Kupp, to be fair. He didn't get to play with A-Rob. He didn't get to play with, you know, like just the offensive line intact. And he didn't get to play really when Aaron Donald was healthy or any of that, right?
Yeah.
Donald's last game was against the defending Super Bowl champion Chiefs. So kind of weird when you think about it. But anyway, my point is that Baker can go and he could start somewhere, but he would have to, if he's going to be your franchise quarterback, he has to start now. Because think about it, he can't just sit behind Matthew Stafford for the next, 3-4 years and hope. That's not going to work out. So do you go down the route of the Packers? Is it too early to draft a quarterback to be that guy? Because right now the Packers are in a weird position. You look over at Aaron Rodgers and it's like, all right, Aaron, you left your darkness retreat, which was hella creepy, by the way. It's like,
he's in touch, Jake. He's in touch.
Yeah. So it's like, where's this going? Are you coming back to the Packers? Now I hear all this stuff about the Packers. I was hearing about the Jets and the Raiders. Now we don't even know where he's going. But if he comes back to the Packers, you have to understand that basically Jordan Love was drafted too early. They drafted a quarterback of the future way too early. Even if he ends up being their quarterback of the future, they drafted him too early because you took a first rounder off the field that could have helped that team back in that time. Multiple years, that first rounder still off the field going into his final season. I Bleav they picked up his 5th-year option, if I'm not, wrong there. But my point is, if Aaron Rodgers starts again, Jordan Love's going to be a free agent, and you don't know anything about this guy. You know what you've seen in practice. You've seen a little bit of gameplay with this guy. He's shown you some things, but he hasn't shown you enough to be like, yeah, I'm totally down to give you $40 million, which is probably something that, like, now, the way that the league is trending, like, that's what's going to happen, right? And so maybe not 40 million, but you get my point. And so with the Rams, they got to tread lightly here, because if they, if Stafford ends up playing another 4 or 5 years, you're looking at the same damn situation. And if this team is not tanking, which they're not tanking, but if this team is not blowing it up, if this team is not rebuilding, they're doing a soft reboot, which is what I've said and I expect them to do, then they're still trying to compete. They're still trying to win. And if you're drafting a guy in the first round and he's not going to play for 5 years,
that's not the move.
That's not helping you now, and it's not helping you later when you have to pay him because you don't know anything about him.
Yeah.
So, it's not like Cam. This is the problem with this question is that there's no right answer. We don't know. I mean, based on Stafford's injury risk anytime you're doing with the spinal cord, like, you have to be careful with that. Rodgers doesn't have that, and he's 38. Stafford already has that, and he's 35. Or 36. So it's like, to me, I don't think it's as simple as, you got to just, Stafford's under contract until this long, so you can't draft a guy. I disagree. So could they draft maybe 2 quarterbacks? I wouldn't be surprised if they did something like that. Could they draft a guy that they really, really like? Say maybe they draft Hendon Hooker in like the 3rd round, and then late in the 7th round, they have all those picks in the bottom of the draft. You draft a guy that you like. Maybe it's Max Duggan at TCU or somebody like that. And that way it's like, okay, I've covered my bases. I have the guy that if Stafford does go down, I feel like this is the guy that can lead our team and at least be not just a spot starter, but more than that, be a short-term quarterback to start, for this team. But Max Duggan, on the other hand, is the guy where if Stafford plays a while, now you talk about quarterbacks as currency, and this is where we like to just continue to circle back to the things we say on this show. But you talk about quarterback being currency, now you trade a guy like Hendon Hooker, you trade a guy like Jaren Hall or whatever, you realize Stafford isn't going anywhere. He's going to play the full contract. Let's get some value for this guy. We have Max Duggan. We have Bryce Perkins. Doesn't have to be Max Duggan, but you get my point. We have those guys. And now we can just roll with those guys, develop them. And now it's like we're bridging the gap in between now and the future. And so if Stafford stays healthy, now you can trade away that guy. You can go and get some picks for him or get a pick for him. And then you could draft, maybe in 2 years, you draft his successor. Maybe that's the thing. But what I will say is if you trade Jalen Ramsey and you get a 1st round pick, there's one guy that I would not pass up on if he was there at quarterback. And that, my friend, is Anthony Richardson out of Florida. I think he's the closest thing you're going to get as far as just pure tools to Patrick Mahomes. I think if he pans out, he's going to be the 2nd best player in the NFL behind Patrick Mahomes. I Bleav that because the guy is an astronomically high ceiling, didn't play with a lot of talent at Florida. He didn't get a Van Jefferson to play with, right? So he didn't have that. And then on top of that, I think the coaching is a big issue. And I'm not just calling out all Florida coaching, but I'm calling out the fact that the issues that I have with Anthony Richardson, the issues that other people have with him, the reason people think he is so raw is because the things that he needs to get better at can be coached up. They can easily be fixed at the NFL level. That's what gets me excited about him, because I see his arm. He can throw it 80 yards. He can run. He looks like Cam Newton, even I'd say better than Cam Newton as a runner. And he breaks tackles. He's big. And the thing about him is that he's got touch. Like, he doesn't just have one throw. He doesn't have like one fastball. The guy can mix up his pitches, so to speak. So, I see him layering over in between two, linebackers, two defenders, or whatever, hitting it, hitting that wide receiver in stride, tight end, etc. This guy is the real deal if he gets the right coaching. The Rams would be the right coaching. So that is the one exception where I'd be like, you know what, it might be a little too early, but Anthony Richardson, man, I don't know. But again, Cam, I don't think there's a right and wrong answer, because the only one that can answer that question is Matthew Stafford and his spinal cord.
Yep, exactly. And, when it comes to Matthew Stafford, he won a championship 2 years ago, so I still think he has that hot hand. He might have gotten hurt last year, spinal cord injury, but I think he still has a hot hand. Getting someone like Richardson, it could be cool, but Matthew, you're back in the Packers situation. Matthew Stafford's going to be a little bit upset. I know his spine's going to be a little upset as well, because man, am I going to sit on the bench now that he's playing? I think we roll with Matthew Stafford. Make sure he's healthy. Get a great free agent, right? Whether it's Baker Mayfield, you continue with him, or it's Mike White, our guy from the Jets. I know we keep talking about that. With the floor coming in, I think it's going to be the best move for the Rams, and I think the Rams draft late, Jake. I don't know if we trade up and get that first round draft pick. I think we draft late, going to the Brock Purdy, that Brock Purdy example. We get a guy that we can develop, that Mike White can develop, that Matthew Stafford can develop, and maybe he's the future for the Rams. And then, hey, 2 years from now, if that doesn't work out, let's go get a first rounder like Anthony Richardson in the next draft. But yeah, I think we roll with Matthew Stafford. I think he's our guy. We give him another chance, make sure he's healthy. And like I said, he still has a hot hand, Jake. He's still tasting the victory. He might have gotten hurt, but I think he still has it. So we'll see.
I think he does too. And I'm not pushing him out, so to speak. I think if you get Anthony Richardson, then he's just Aaron Rodgers under Brett Favre.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, to a T, that's actually a really good example. Because you talk about a high, draft pick in the first round, top quarterback prospect. And then you talk about, Stafford, who plays like he's Favre, the way he always moves out of the pocket, makes things happen, takes that risky throw. He's always, go big or go home, right?
Yeah.
And so, I think it's almost to a T, and I think that'd be very interesting. Now, Anthony Richardson probably isn't falling to the Rams' lap, because the Rams, if they get a first rounder, is probably going to be a late first rounder, because they're probably going to want to get another pick, whether that's a second or a third, which they should. I don't want to see Les Snead doing any of the, we'll give you a sixth, then you give us a, Jalen and a sixth for a first and a third. Like, no. I want a first and a third for Jalen. Stop giving away picks. Like, I want the picks. This team is cap strapped. Let's not give up those picks. I mean, I can't stand those pick swap trades. Like, you got more picks, you don't need to give up another one. I don't know. I hate that. So I'm counting on you, Les. I'm counting on you.
Come on, Les.
And don't be doing no Sam Bradford, Nick Foles thing. When he came out, I don't know if you knew this, but he came out and said, after the Nick Foles Sam Bradford deal, he's like, well, we were offered a first rounder for Bradford, but we wanted Nick Foles, so we settled for a second Nick Foles. And I'm like, you could have drafted a quarterback. Like, why'd you do that? Like, it's just, I don't know. Like, stuff like that just irks me. I love player personnel and all the general manager stuff. I've been doing it since I was a little kid on Madden. And I just hate that. I'm always trying to get the most value, not trying to screw the other person, because same thing in fantasy football. If you're making a trade with your friend, I'm not trying to screw my friend over. You don't make a trade unless it benefits both parties.
Yeah.
But I also don't want to let my friend fleece me. So, and that's
business 101. That's negotiation 101, right? Because then, hey, the next year or the next time, they're going to remember that. They're going to be like, hey, remember that time you did me dirty. So you always want to have a gentleman's or a lady's bet. You want to make sure that you're treating people right, because you just never know, Jake. You never know.
You never know. And even furthermore, Cam, you never know if people are going to remember you're that guy, and then you develop that, like, on both sides. You develop the essentially the reputation of being the guy that just fleeces people, and now no one wants to trade with you. One, or two, you become the guy that everyone knows that they can fleece, so they just always fleece you, and you never realize it. You're like, why am I always giving up more than everyone else? It's like, hello.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know. It's one of those things, man. It's like the Yankee tax in baseball. Like, teams know that the Yankees, the reason everyone taxes them more than everyone else when they're doing trades, because they know, like, the Yankees have the prospects. They're the team that just, 27 titles, and they bought championships and all that. So they know they can get a little bit out of the Yankees, where it's like, all right, like, this other team, this small market Pirates team, might be giving up 2 prospects. The Yankees are now giving up 5, because they know the Yankees have done it before and they will continue to do it. And that's why the Yankee tax is very much real and exists at the trade deadline. And it's one of those things where, in any sport, if you are a general manager, like, you're known for that, teams are just going to walk all over you. So Les has done a fantastic job of getting talent in the building. But when he's pushed talent out, I don't want to say push, that's kind of mean, but when he's traded talent away, Robert Quinn, you got, like, hardly anything for him. Okay. Mm-hmm. He ended up going not long after and having 18.5 sacks, second in the league in sacks. William Hayes. I know William Hayes didn't do much after he left the Rams, but Hayes was very good. Okay. Going into that year they traded him. It's like they traded him for his future value and not what he actually was. Mm-hmm. And then you look at Alec Ogletree. I mean, the guy, he's the first extension of the Sean McVay era and Les Snead era. And he gets traded away for, like, a 4th and a 6th. I don't know. This is what I'm talking about. It's like, you got to get more value. They got nothing for Todd Gurley. I mean, you're talking about the most dominant guy. I don't care what anyone says. He was the most dominant non-quarterback offense, maybe even, like, most dominant offensive player in the NFL with that span he had. Mm-hmm. I mean, when Sean McVay got a hold of him, I remember a quote. Jeff Fisher, no offense, Jeff, but Jeff Fisher had Todd Gurley looking like Eddie George, and Sean McVay turned Todd Gurley into Marshall Faulk. And I totally knew it. Like, exactly when I read that, I was like, oh my God, this is so true. Like, we were watching it before our eyes. But yeah, to make a long story short, essentially, Les Snead got nothing for nothing at all for Todd Gurley.
We must do better.
Still pains me.
We must do better, Jake, right? And like you mentioned it, right? Not pushing guys out, but, when you say one man's trash, another man's treasure, when the Rams do push people out, it makes them feel like trash. So let's make sure that we value them. Hey, trade treasure for treasure, not trash for trash. That could be the title of this podcast. Let's trade treasure for treasure, not trash for treasure. So we'll see.
We will definitely see. Now let's wrap this up with a little report card talk. No, not high school, college, or middle school. I don't just get your mind out of that school nonsense. Report card, we're talking NFLPA. We're talking 32 teams. The Rams ranked 25th. Now, here's the thing, okay? They were ranked very highly in training staff, and that does not surprise me. I've only heard amazing things about their training staff. Reggie Scott, all those guys, they do a fantastic job. Yeah. Everyone I've ever talked to said that. This wasn't surprising to me. It's not that the Rams, because I know fans might be like, are you saying we're the 25th ranked? No. Hold on a sec. Not everything is how it seems. This ranking can go up like that very easily, but they have to upgrade a couple things. Now, Cam, you have experienced this, okay? So we're going to talk. I believe they're 28th. I don't have it in front of me, but they were 28th in family, like, experience or whatever it was called, like the treatment of families, I think it was. So let's start with that. How did you, as a player for the LA Rams, how did you feel they treated your family? Do you think 28th in the league is fair?
So a lot of times when it comes to the rankings, it's from the players' rankings, right? So what the NFLPA does, they send out a survey, whether the guys are through their emails or whether they're on site at the facility, and they send out a survey and they rank some of the things there. When it comes to the communication for the family members, I saw that was pretty low. That's why they're 28 because of that. I think a lot of it comes between tickets, right? When a lot of times when in the NFL, just in general, Jake, right, where tickets for family members, I've had family members sitting at the top of stadiums. We're playing the Giants at MetLife Stadium. It's cold, it's freezing cold, November, and they're at the top of the stadium. And they're like, dude, what is this? You're paying $300 for these tickets per person. You got them at the top of the stadium. And so I think a lot of times when it comes to treatment of family, it's because of the tickets. And I don't always want to blame the NFL for this, but I want to blame Ticketmaster, Jake, because a lot of times we can have a full segment on this, Jake, right? But a lot of times when the NFL, they get a certain amount of tickets and these teams get a certain amount of tickets, I feel like they have to go and buy extra tickets from Ticketmaster, and the tickets aren't great. And so they shovel them out to some of the players. Sometimes then drafted players get the worst of the tickets and the first rounders get the best of the tickets. I've been on the back end of that where, for example, I had a chance to broadcast the Super Bowl in 2018, Rams versus Patriots. And I was with the Buccaneers at the time, and I went to the ticket person. I said, hey, can I get some $2,000 tickets for my family? Jake, mind you, when I'm broadcasting this game, it's with Talk Sport Radio, and we're at the top of the stadium. You can barely see anything. My family was literally right below me, and I'm like, hey, man, like I played in the NFL. I paid $2,000 for these tickets. Why are my family members this close? And so I would have definitely given a lower rank because of that as well. So I do think a lot of this is because of tickets. And, when it comes to family communication, whether it be after a game, you want to see your family members. For an example, we were playing in Arizona one time. Playing in Arizona, the communication was off, and my family members weren't able to see me because they didn't get into the family section inside the stadium. They were kind of waiting with everyone else outside. And so I missed seeing my family there. And so sometimes teams drop the ball with that. And so I really think it comes down to ticketing and just the accommodation of the family members when it comes to games, pregame and postgame.
So it sounds to me, Cam, like this, and by the way, I did bring it up because I felt like 28 was a little low. They're tied for 24th, D+ grade. Sounds to me like they kind of got clumped in. There's a lot of teams that are just really not great at this. And it's not like the Rams treated your family poorly, but this sounds like more like a greater NFL issue, right?
That's what I think it is, Jake. I think it's a greater NFL issue. I think sometimes these teams are given wholesale tickets, or hey guys, we have a whole bunch of tickets for you, take them. And sometimes the players get the short end of the stick. So I think this is more of a NFL issue rather than a team issue, because when you look at that report card, it's not the personnel within the Rams facility that are getting low grades, right? You talk about the trainers, they got rated high, but the training facilities aren't rated high. I think the weight training staff got ranked number 1, right? But the weight room is not number 1. And so I think really it's more of the situation rather than the people. And I do think that the Rams, the people within the organization, my mom always says this, Cam, they always take care of you. Jaquez McClendon, he's the player engagement rep for the Rams. He's always taking care of me, Jake. And so forever grateful for him and for the Rams organization for that. So it's more of a, like you said, more of a bigger picture thing, NFL thing, rather than the Rams organization.
Yeah, and before, because we'll go through each one of these, bang them out real quick, just getting your thoughts on them. But before we do that, the Ticketmaster thing, I'm not going to talk too long about it, but they stole over $300 of my money because my friend and I had purchased these tickets. And I'm sure if he's watching this, he's sitting there like, oh, God. But we purchased these tickets. Ticketmaster, basically gave us our money back, but gave it in a form of credit because of COVID. The concert got canceled. It was an Incubus concert in Saratoga. And so, it was like 300 something bucks that we got in credit, right? It was on my account. And I tried to jump through every freaking hoop in the book to try to use this damn credit, Cam. Yeah. Ask anyone that knows me. I have complained about this credit for so long because I had 2 years to do it. And I tried to get Panic at the Disco concert tickets. At one point, Cam, I was scrambling. I was trying to get like Toby Keith tickets. I don't even know if the guy plays. My point is, like, literally, I was just trying to get this thing spent because it just bugged the crap out of me. And so there were all these different things, like, you can't have any resale. So then when I didn't have resale and I got in first, like, I was like, okay, this is not resale. This is pre-sale. I'm doing it. You can't have any pre-sale. And I was like, okay, so I just can't freaking buy anything with this. This is about as useful as Monopoly dollars, and I hate you. So yeah, Ticketmaster sucks. And if they hear me and if this burns any bridge, I didn't want to bridge with you anyway. All right, let's move on.
Wait, real quick. What about the Taylor Swift issue with Ticketmaster? Wasn't that a big issue? Like, there's so many Ticketmasters coming up.
There's always issues. Like the fact, like, oh, we're against bots. Oh, we're against scalping. But you literally allow it all the time, to the point where Foo Fighters back in the day, I can attest this. My dad went to a Foo Fighters show where it was general admission. It was this crazy club show. Keep in mind, Foo Fighters is massive. They sell out arenas in seconds. And so he goes to New York City, camps out basically for these tickets. And you had to get there. It was called Beat the Bots, because Foo Fighters was doing these pop-up shows to stop these bots and these scammers and these scalpers from stealing all these tickets online, because Ticketmaster doesn't do a damn thing. So, you know, there are more artists.
It's not beef for Ticketmaster.
Yeah.
It's not beef.
They're trash. I'm just going to say it. Anyway, moving on. NFL drop Ticketmaster. All right, moving on. Food service and nutrition is a D, tied for 22nd. Where are you on this?
Yeah, it's tough because, like I said, the facility, right? The chefs may not be D-ranked chefs, but I do think it's the facilities, right? For an example, when I was with the Rams, a lot of times the Rams would bring in vendors sometimes, because local LA vendors, they would come outside and cook outside of the cafeteria because there was not much space there. So a lot of these rankings are coming in where it's like, hey, Rams, do we build a facility, a practice facility for these players, an actual place to house them? Do you bring these guys to SoFi Stadium, right? Practice at SoFi Stadium and build some locker room space there. Like, what is, they didn't have locker room space, so why not move them there? What does that look like? But I do know that up in Thousand Oaks, where the facilities are, it's not great, and the kitchen is not great. But they do their best to suffice these big football players. I mean, these guys are 330 pounds, so you got to feed them. There's a lot of calories being taken in, so they do the best that they can. But it's not great, Jake. That's why these numbers are so low. It's the facilities, not the people.
Yes, and that's what I've heard as well. Tied for 22nd, D. We're going to combine the 4 due to time constraints. Don't want to take up too much of your time. But weight room, C. Strength coaches, A+.
Yeah.
So they're first. Weight room was 25th. Training room is 24th, and training staff is A+ first. So first in strength, first in training, tied for first. That tells me, it sounds to me like you got all these Hall of Famers around, no offensive line, no defensive line, no secondary. I mean, that's basically what I'm hearing, is that like you've got all these great talents and these individuals that care and want to ascend and rise everyone up and help everyone. But these facilities are like having an offensive line where everyone's in their 45s and their defensive line where no one can move. They're all in they're all using a cane or something. I mean, that's what it sounds like to me.
Yeah. I mean, you're hot tubbing outside in like an outdoor jacuzzi. It's really makeshift, Jake. A lot of the meetings are in trailers. Like it's not the best situation. Sometimes like in high school where you have like some of the AP classes, sometimes they were like in trailers. You walk outside of the building and you go out there. Like that's where a lot of the Rams facilities are. It's like a trailer that's done up really nice, expanded, blown out, pimped out, but it's not the best situation. That's why these things are being ranked so low. So do they move the Rams to SoFi? So they bring their numbers up. What does that look like? I was
thinking that.
That'd be really nice. And I do think too, right, to keep the guys out of Los Angeles, that's why things are in the Thousand Oaks area. A lot of times people don't realize, but Thousand Oaks is about a 45 to hour drive into LA. Traffic, distance, and all that. And so keeping the guys away from the business, I think is going to be really important for focus. And then you go to training camp. The Rams do training camp out in Oxnard. Sometimes they do it also in Irvine, at UC Irvine. And so doing it away from the city is for focus purposes. But when it comes to the facilities, right? Like, to keep guys like Bobby Wagner, to keep guys like Jalen Ramsey, it's almost like college where you want to have the bells and the whistles for these guys to feel comfortable. If you go and lose a game or a whole bunch of games like the Rams did last year, you're going to a trailer to then talk about how to get better the next day, and you're going to a jacuzzi that's outside, you're getting food that's out on the balcony. Like, it makes it tough, my man. It makes it tough to retain talent. So similar to college, you want to have the bells and whistles, like Clemson, they had a dang on slide in there, in their facility. Like, you want to have that so guys can feel comfortable at home.
Yeah, it's funny when you say makeshift jacuzzi. I'm just thinking of like a tin, like a pool, like one of those tin pools, like with like the little kids. I'm talking really, really like cheap.
Oh, you're talking about the kiddie pool, the kiddie. I mean, man, it's it's not that, it's not like that. It's not far away from that, but it's it's like your backyard jacuzzi. You know what I mean? Your whirlpool, like it's one of those, but it's just tough to manage, man. It's tough to manage when you go to places. You think about the Dallas Cowboys, like the Star, like they got it made there, man. Like that's the stuff that athletes, you're getting paid a certain amount of money. You're expected to perform at a certain level. Like those are the things that you want to see in the places you want to be a part of.
And now with the locker room and team travel, we'll combine them. Locker room is D, tied for 25th. Team travel, B-, tied for 18th. So apparently team travel, like a lot of teams in the league travel well if B- is tied for 18th. But what I want to ask you here, actually what I want to reiterate. So this isn't game to game. This isn't, obviously the locker room's amazing at SoFi Stadium. You're saying this is practices and like training camp, right?
Yeah, this is practices and training camp. The locker room, it gets like when it's cold outside, it's cold in there, right? Because the AC, the heat doesn't really pump and flow into one of those tin boxes. So it's very makeshift, Jake. They do the best they can, and it's tough because the Rams, when we moved from St. Louis to LA, you won a Super Bowl within a couple of years. So it's like, oh, wow, maybe these trailers do work. But no, like when you're losing, like it makes it even worse. And so, it might be something where, Les Snead and Sean McVay's like, hey, we need to get these guys into some premium, locations so they can feel comfortable. But it is what it is. When you move from St. Louis to LA, I guess that's what happens to Stan Kroenke. You got to figure out how to get your guys comfortable and winning football games at the end of the day.
Yeah, I know he had recently invested in a mall or whatever, and an old vacated mall or whatever, and that's going to be the new training facility, I believe. But I mean, this should have been
Hollywood
way
Park
in the making. Yeah, This should have been in the making a long time ago. I mean, we're now in 2023. The Rams should have a top of the, like, money is not an issue. It's not like Stan Kroenke can't afford it, and it's not like he's being cheap. I think really he might have misjudged this. It might have taken way too long, and all of that. But yeah, they got to get this fixed. The players deserve better. You just won the Super Bowl, and as a Super Bowl champion, you're like, man, what am I doing? D3 facility? Like, come on. Like, like I get it. I do. And I think this is important because I think the league has to do better, especially with the treatment of families. There's no excuse. All of these should be A+. It's the NFL. It's the richest league. All of these should be A+, regardless.
Especially the family part, Jake. If you can't do the facility part right now, like that's okay. You're working on that. But the family part, I think that's no excuse. I think these guys, we work hard for what we do. Think about your family members, your pops and your family, your brothers and sisters. Like, make sure they're taken care of. And so that's no excuse. That's like kind of like when you show up to work or you show up to do something, you can manage your effort, you can manage your attitude. Like with stuff like this, like you can manage communicating properly and treating people's families right. Like that's inexcusable out of that whole list there.
Totally agree with you. I've been to the family section before. I think one of the family members let me in, I think for the Rams and Packers game, and no one knew like where it was. So we and that was at the Coliseum, so it could be completely different at SoFi. But that has been an issue before. It sounds to me like the Rams staff is great. They just need to upgrade their facilities, and the NFL does need to take more accountability for these tickets, this communication, all of that. So yeah, I think that was great, and appreciate your humble and insightful responses on
without
this,
getting in trouble.
You're not trying to throw hands at anybody. You're just like, hey, look, let me be real with you. This is how it was. I love the guys there, but I'm not going to lie because, the Rams have treated me well. I got to be honest here. Otherwise, things won't get better. If no one talks about this, then it's just, okay.
And the facts don't lie. The report card doesn't lie. So I'm just expressing and all breaking down what that report card is saying is the facilities aren't great and the report card shows. I mean, come on. It is what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's nothing wrong with that. So guys, we appreciate you. Be sure to check us out on all podcast platforms. If you like just audio or whatever, subscribe, like, comment, rate, review. This podcast, as always, has been presented by betonline.ag. He's Cameron Lynch. I'm Jake Ellenbogen, and we've had a blast. Until next time, folks, take it easy. Later, folks.
Peace.